cede that ground, that gives an opening to countries like China. And so you would think that it's in America's best interest to keep USAID intact. And yet that's not what we're doing. We're instead ceding that ground to China, and that's bad for America, but it's good for one person, and that's Elon Musk, who has business interests in Beijing, who has business interests in Shanghai. And that's just one example, the USAID thing. We're seeing countless examples
it's the right one.
Where there are institutions that benefit.
YouTuber Brian Tyler Cohen appeared on Chris Cuomo's News Nation show to discuss Elon Musk's slash and burn tactics at USAID. We're going to watch clips of this conversation between Brian Tyler Cohen and Chris Cuomo, and I've got some thoughts to share on it as well. Before we dive into this, I need to mention that our previous channel was wiped out, so we really need your support to rebuild. Please subscribe to help us reach 100 subscribers. Now, let's get into this discussion together.
Tyler Cohen, progressive YouTuber, friend of show, posted a tweet about this today in response to Vance's call to rehire the DOGE employee. He wrote, "The husband of an Indian-American wife and the father of 3 Indian-American kids wants to bring back the staffer who posted normalize Indian hate." Brian joins me now. It's good to see you, young man. Always a pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.
So here's the counter. Yes, he has to defend him because you and your brothers and sisters, or whatever they call themselves, want to cancel everyone who says anything you don't like. It's not enough to disagree. It's not enough for them to have to apologize. God forbid anybody apologize because you kill them with that. But you want to cancel them. And that's what you guys are about. And it's out of step with the compassion of the American psyche. And people are against you on it. And that's why Vance has taken the other side.
I mean, think about what that looks like in practice here, this desperation to push back on cancel culture, right? Thanks to Vance now, you have this DOGE employee whose stated position is that Indians should feel hated in America. He's going to be rehired, and then Vance gets to go home to his Indian American wife and his Indian American kids and look them in the eyes and say that a guy who wants you to feel uncomfortable in your own country now has a top job again in the government thanks to me. Like, Vance had a chance to defend his own family, and he opted instead to defend the Indian-hating bigot instead. Like, Chris, where are the balls on these Republican men? Trump calls Ted Cruz's wife ugly. Ted Cruz becomes Trump's best friend. Elon wants the DOGE kid who hates Indians back, and Vance does his bidding while his Indian wife and kids are at home. Like, do they castrate these guys at the door of the RNC?
They have to pick a side, Brian, because this is what you guys do. Look, I see it. I think you got high ground here.
People could simply choose to not side with someone who speaks poorly of their spouses. It really should be that straightforward. This aspect is partly what frustrates many about politics and baffles those who can't fathom the admiration some have for Donald Trump. It's hard to understand how anyone could respect the individuals around him, who many view as despicable. Imagine aligning yourself with someone who insulted your spouse's appearance. What kind of person would do that? Yet this is a common issue with many right-wing figures, although it's not exclusive to them. Politicians on the left engage in similar behavior, contributing to widespread disdain for political figures. I agree with Brian Tyler Cohen on this point. Chris Cuomo seems to imply that the left might be worse, but I don't remember anyone from the left making derogatory comments about Ted Cruz's wife. This kind of behavior highlights why so many people are disillusioned with politicians.
Is a real one. He is a bigot. And I guess Vance, because he's married to an Indian woman and his kids are half Indian, he has portfolio to say, I can treat this guy any way I want because I'm the one being affected by his hate, not you. Okay, but I see the same thing in you guys, how you're assessing the executive orders. Everything Trump wants to do has to be illegal and wrong. Waste, fraud, and abuse. Everything Musk is doing has to be wrong. And I feel like you guys get stuck, not so much with the racist kid. I think you're on the right side of that one. But these 80-20 issues, trans females in sports, whether you should stand for the anthem, things where like most people are like, yeah, you should do that. You guys take the 20 side because Trump's on the 80 side. And I see that was the waste, fraud, and abuse. And I see it as an extension of the same toxic dynamic, if not as ugly an example.
Look, I think that you'll be hard pressed to find Democrats who say if there's legitimate fraud that we have to somehow keep it just because of stasis. But what Elon is doing here is not is not really doing that. I mean, by taking away USAID, which again, the reason he did it is clear, is because they were investigating him. I mean, this is what, just over a half of 1% of the budget. It does things like delivers clean water and offers HIV prevention across the world. Not only are those good unto themselves, again, for a fraction of the budget, but they confer goodwill to America across the entire planet. And then that means that when there's global conflicts, we have that goodwill to bank on. When we cede that ground, that gives an opening to countries like China. And so you would think that it's in America's best interest to keep USAID intact. And yet that's not what we're doing. We're instead ceding that ground to China, and that's bad for America, but it's good for one person. And that's Elon Musk, who has business interests in Beijing, who has business interests in Shanghai. And that's just one example, the USAID thing. We're seeing countless examples
it's the right one.
Where there are institutions that benefit.
Look, of course, a lot of the agencies do good things, Brian, but let's stick with the instant example because it's what we're living right now. Look, my beef, it's not my beef. My challenge is this. They can't get rid of the agency. Congress has to be involved in that. So there's going to be a litigation. That part's going to be on hold. The Democrats seem as though you are completely oppositional to any efforts to do anything. Why not instead Ro-Khanna it and say, hey, look, these lists of things that you said in the subscriptions, Republicans and Democrats got those subscriptions from Politico, but if you want them out, that's fine. Let's see what else we can get rid of. We're here for it. You guys don't own waste, fraud, and abuse. We want it gone but no, you oppose it every step of the way. I haven't heard a single Democrat say anything good other than the yeah, but. Yeah, we're against it, but. And then you're against everything they're doing to get rid of it.
I think that if you really want to show Americans that you're legit about rooting out waste, fraud, and abuse, then go to the agency, for example, that's failed, the last 8 or 9 audits, and that's the military. But they won't touch the things that are obvious, that are the obvious 100%. Targets. Instead, when you go after USAID, the agency that is investigating Elon Musk, it shows that you're not serious about.
Chris Cuomo and Tyler Cohen both hit the nail on the head when discussing the budget. Yes, we're talking about billions of dollars, but in the broader context of the federal budget, the areas targeted for cuts are minor. Many on the left, myself included, have argued that if real cuts were made to substantial areas like the Pentagon, then we'd see true fiscal responsibility. We're not talking about insignificant cuts, like reducing outreach programs aimed at diversifying the military, but substantial ones. Do we really need 900 military bases globally? Do we need to continue providing over $300 billion to Israel? If such significant budget areas were addressed, many on the left would support these cuts. Sure, some are just staunchly Team Democrat and oppose anything from Team Republican, but many genuine progressives would welcome sensible defense cuts, regardless of who proposes them. Cuomo suggests that Democrats oppose cuts merely because Trump and Musk are suggesting them. However, people are primarily concerned that Musk is bypassing proper procedures and making unfounded accusations of waste and corruption at agencies like USAID, which before last week most people hadn't even heard of, let alone understood any supposed misconduct there. It's completely disingenuous for Team MAGA to suddenly champion Musk's crusade against supposed waste and corruption in USAID, especially when this agency has had bipartisan support since its inception in the early 60s by JFK. To argue that it's been a hotbed of corruption all this time and that both parties have been complicit is a stretch. It seems unlikely that all the terrible actions they're accusing USAID of could have been supported by both parties for over 50 or 60 years. The reality is that while Republicans are now supporting Musk's drastic measures within USAID, they were also supportive of its missions in the past. The suggestion that all the problems are due to lefty stuff while ignoring Republican involvement is misleading. What are your thoughts on this? Do you agree more with Tyler Cohen's view on starting with defense cuts or with Chris Cuomo's perspective? Drop your thoughts in the comments. This is Cole Talk, and I'll see you in the next video.